After a very tumultuous start to his NFL career, Caleb Williams is looking to bounce back in year two or his sophomore season under Ben Johnson. And what will constitute a successful season for Caleb Williams? We're going to be breaking that down in today's video. What is up, guys? Welcome back to So Back Sports, and I'm so back with another video. And today we're going to be talking about what exactly will constitute a successful season for Caleb Williams. Before we get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Really means a lot. It really helps me create content like this for you guys. Always hit that like button and comment down below what you think will be a successful season for Caleb Williams. So let's take a look at his stats from last season. We've been kind of going over this quite a bit, and you can see that he has 3,541 passing yards, which ranked 17th in the NFL, 20th and 20 touchdowns, which ranked fifth, tied for 15th. 6 interceptions, was tied for 78th in the NFL, and a QBR of 46.7. For a season that he's had with multiple head coaches at the helm, multiple offensive coordinators, you kind of had to tip your hat to him to even be able to get such a stats like those stats. You know, especially with multiple firings as well. Like you as a rookie quarterback going through that is not ideal in any sort of case. And for Caleb Williams to go through all that, and the whole debacles with Eberflus m- game with the games that he tried to come back but he couldn't because of his coaches sabotaging the team and the defense also sabotaging at times. There's definitely some fault for the other teams, like the rest of the team itself, but also they have to blame Caleb Williams as well. He could have done a lot better in the circumstances that he was in. Holding onto the ball at times a little bit too much, but then again, it's his rookie season. There's so many different factors that went into it, and you got to keep in mind that a team that didn't really focus on building the offensive line thoroughly and having a bunch of sixth round and undrafted players within that offensive scheme is not going to cut it. And having an offensive coordinator that has very vanilla offense like Shane Waldron, utilizing too many screens, becoming play calling becoming extremely predictable, you can't really base an offense. And on top of that, he didn't really help Caleb Williams whatsoever. And without proper tutelage, you can't expect to develop Caleb Williams. And you got to also keep in mind, Caleb, the fact that he was even able to, have some semblance of an offense and put up those stats shows you how important, how good he actually is, and how he's actually living up to, the being the number one pick in the draft. Had any other quarterback been in this situation that in this past draft class, I don't think it would have stand a chance. Especially under a coach with Eberflus, and no matter how hard he tried to put that beard on, it's not going to help. Especially, um, it's a really tough question sometimes, and it could be very simple with a simple like, oh, get 4,000 yards, uh, insane stats, become an MVP. Essentially, that's what I've been hearing a lot when it comes to the media. Especially one of Danny Parkins on Breakfast Ball. I think that's their show. And he had like expectations going into the season on improvement. And the improvement is 4,000 yards being a minimum, um, 35 plus touchdowns or 30 touchdowns. And so less than, just a little bit more interceptions and like 10 plus wins. If you think about it in a vacuum, I think that's a pretty good increase from what he was, because 3,541 passing yards is just only less than 500 yards away from the infamous 4K that the Chicago Bears quarterback is trying to get at. And then 30 touchdowns is just another additional 10 touchdowns that, throughout the season, Caleb Williams has had multiple games where he didn't have a single recorded touchdown, especially when he first started the first 2 games of the NFL season where he was looking for his first passing touchdown. He ended with 20, which is good, pretty solid, but he still can afford to get more under an offense with Ben Johnson at the helm. So the interceptions, it's very hit or miss. Like, obviously, you want to limit the amount of interceptions, and I think Caleb Williams has done a good job when it comes to limiting the turnovers. In terms of fumbles, it's a little bit of a different story. But in terms of the passing game, when he does pass, he's usually very careful with the football. And he had that insane streak of like 10 or like 9+ games without recording an interception or something like that. Insane for a rookie. And like just genuinely, it is. So let's take a look at one thing real quick when it comes to the Chicago Bears. Let's revisit something, and that is that's not it. This thing. Let's increase the thing. Perfect. Okay. Eric Kramer still is our leading quarterback from terms of most passing yards within a single season for the Chicago Bears. Still 3,838 passing yards. The fact that Caleb Williams last year came fifth says a lot about Caleb Williams in itself. Like, you have Mitch Trubisky, whose only highest ever was 3,200 passing yards in a season. If we go all the way down here, Justin Fields only recorded 2,562 passing yards in his short career here in Chicago. If we go back up here, Jay Cutler three times in a row, like 3,812. He came very close to getting that record. And the fact that Caleb Williams in his first season with so much turmoil was able to get 3,541 passing yards says a lot about why he was selected number one, how good he can be with just proper coaching at the end of the day and proper offensive scheme and teaching him, how to run an offense that's modernized to fit the modern NFL. And with that being said, I don't think 4,000 yards is anywhere of a stretch for Caleb Williams. I think that's very reasonable, if anything. If you look back into past season, Caleb Williams had multiple chances or multiple games where he had less than 100 yards, or like he had less than 200 yards. If he just averages about 200, he can easily get to that number, that famous number of his. He had recorded multiple 300-yard games. Like, you see the progressions there. It's just that once he gets that stats to go with it, and you have to also keep in mind, he's not just only stat padding. It has to also result in wins as well. Because what is the point of having all those stats if it doesn't result in wins? But you have to also keep in mind that the NFC North as a whole has improved significantly, especially last year. Had three teams with 12 plus wins or 11 plus wins in a season. Like, if that's not an insane division, I don't know what is. The Packers, who had 11 wins or so or 12 wins in the season, like, they went 1-5 against the division. Shout out my Bears for beating them. But that's another factor to consider because, just depends on how good Detroit's going to be, how good Minnesota's going to be with JJ McCarthy, and how good the Packers are going to be with the additions that they made in the offseason. So bear in mind, and it just for me, it's not necessarily can Caleb Williams do it. It's just that the expectations, are they extremely lofty from the media perspective? I think they are a little bit overblown because I think that, getting, becoming essentially an MVP candidate in some people's, like, from what I've been hearing, it's been like Caleb Williams has to be an MVP in order for him to have a successful second season. No, that's not how it works, especially in the NFL. It's a team sport at the end of the day. And it's maybe contradictory for what I'm saying because Caleb does have to improve at the end of the day. And the thing is, with how he ended this past season with those stats, like, he can definitely do more with a good offense, like I said before. And Ben Johnson will help with that, especially when it comes to it. Just basic clock management alone can help him win games this season. Especially if we were last season, like, we could have easily been a 10 win team if it were, or like at least a 9-win team with the amount of games that we've blown due to poor coaching decisions. That's just reality of the situation. So I want to also take into look at, the 4,000 yard mark, because I feel like that's also a number that, while it is a lofty goal and a pretty reasonable goal for Caleb Williams, I want to put into perspective. And shout out Julian W. Lucas Sports for bringing this statistic up and kind of like putting into perspective why 4,000 yards doesn't have so much weight nowadays. It's just that it's a Bears thing, to consider. Um, Let me share my screen. Yes. Okay. Let's take a look at the top 5 quarterbacks that threw for 4,000 yards. Joe Burrow, Jared Goff with 4,600. Joe Burrow almost nearly had 5,000 yards this past season with 43 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. But he also was sacked 48 times too. I'll get into the sacks in a bit with Caleb Williams because that's also a goal that he has to have. Baker Mayfield, 4,500 yards. Great season for him. Geno Smith, 4,320 yards. Sam Darnold, 4,319 yards. The runner-up for MVP, Lamar Jackson, 4,172 yards. That's just the top 6. And ever since down there, it's downhill. 3,928 yards for Patrick Mahomes. Not necessarily, it's close, but it's not there. 3,897 yards for Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers had a pretty bad season last year. And if that's like not 4,000, like, he didn't reach 4,000. Does that mean his season was completely like irrelevant? That's what I'm asking. Justin Herbert, 3,870 yards. Bo Nix, 3,775 yards. Jaden Daniels, the rookie of the year, 3,568 yards. We go back to Caleb Williams, 3,541 yards, just barely like 10 plus more yards than Caleb Williams. And then if we keep going further, the Caleb Williams had more yards than Jordan Love this past season, more yards than the Super Bowl champion Jalen Hurts. Keep in mind, I will be very, when I'm telling you this, that Jordan Love was hurt for some games, but he didn't play his best football as well. But they still ended up being an 11-win team. But yeah, so Josh Allen, the MVP of the league. How can I forget? 3,731 yards. Like, you got to keep that in mind. Like, 4,000 yards from a perspective of the Chicago Bears have never had a 4,000 yards quarterback. And the fact that that's like the end all be all of a season, like let's say Caleb Williams gets 10 wins and they make the playoffs. And if he doesn't get 4,000 yards, does that mean it's a non-successful season? Sure, that would suck. But if we make the playoffs in his second season and his first season under Ben Johnson, is that a failure? Now we got to put that into perspective. While stats are really important at the end of the day, I think that, it can't just be all that. Like, you have to have some, growth as well. And I think Caleb has the ability to take us to the promised land with better coaching. And if everything goes to plan, he can, without a doubt, get the 4,000 yards. I just don't think that's like the end all be all for Caleb Williams in his going into year 2. As long as he improves from what he was, this past, say he gets like 3,950 yards to end the season. It would suck, definitely. It really will suck. But it's still a successful season if they end up making the playoffs. But if they don't make the playoffs, and it's also that, it's just like salt in the wound. As he's still improved, and then let's say they get like 8 wins and they improved from last year, you had to measure success in increments at the end of the day. But the verdict for me, what constitutes a successful season for Caleb Williams? Getting roughly around 4,000 yards, 32 plus touchdowns. I think he can definitely get 12 more with, over the course of a season. Interceptions, keep it to a minimum, but I think 10 to 15 interceptions is fine with the amount of production that you put in the touchdowns. And listen, you got to let it fly too. You got to take chances, and you're bound to get picked off. That's the NFL, and um, about 9 to 10 wins, and the most importantly, less than 68 sacks. Let's try to aim for about 40 sacks, down 28 sacks. Okay, I think that's pretty solid. 4,000, roughly around 4,000 yards, 9 to 10 wins, 32 plus touchdowns, 10 to 15 interceptions, and um 40 sacks max. The offensive line's improved a lot, so I'm not too worried about that. But that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you constitute as a successful season for Caleb Williams, statistic wise. Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Always remember to like and subscribe, follow the socials down below. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one.